All right. I think we've kind of waited long enough, and if more people jump on, they can. Just self-introduction, I'm Jeremy Hill, the director for the Center for Economic Development and Business Research. You can see Andrea on here. She is our
I'm just going to
budget
kind of
and
listen in here.
yeah, listen in, and you're welcome to ask questions and engage. We got plenty of time to engage. So Andrea is our budget and events coordinator, as you can see her online. I'm actually going to turn this over to Craig in just a second. He's our economist here within the center, and so that he's actually going to go through and talk about the model. Again, the way this agenda is going to be set up, we're going to have presentation and then lots of questions. We can open up the model and even talk through how something gets included or not included in that model. So with that, I guess I'm going to go ahead and pause and turn it over to Craig. Thanks, Craig, for willing to do this.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's another self-introduction. I'm Craig Compton. I've been working at the center for a little under a year. I started February of last year. But one of my core responsibilities here is helping with the model. And helping with the processing and further development of it. So, so far it's been exciting to see all the projects that have come through. It's a pretty useful tool for everyone. So, excited to introduce it to all of you, explain a little bit about it. So, first we'll talk about kind of the background of what the model is. And then we'll talk about how we prepare the model. So what are the inputs going into the model? And then we'll talk about some of the outputs that you can expect when we're evaluating all of those inputs. So as we move along, feel free to ask questions, and we'll make sure to have plenty of time toward the end. As Jeremy said, to go through and just we can look at the model, and we can do just various things to deepen your understanding of the model. So we'll dive right in and tell you a little bit about just the background of the model. So it was developed originally in 1993. So this model is as old as I am. It's gotten several different iterations. So in 2005, 2009, there was redevelopment with the Greater Wichita Economic Development. 2019, some control measures were added, and then in 2022, the actual interface was redesigned. And I should also note that every year, as new inputs get updated, for an example, Laura Kelly's recent grocery tax, those things get incorporated with updates every single year. So we'll talk a little bit about this concept of the circular flow. So this kind of gets to the core of what the model actually is and what it does, for local governments and local leaders. So we have this in economics, the concept of the circular flow, and the flow of both money and goods throughout the economy. So you have, your firms, your governments, your households. Governments will, have infrastructure investment, and they, use those expenditures to enhance households and firms. Those firms then supply the households with funds so that they can purchase money or purchase goods from the firms, and with each of those transactions comes taxes that go back into the government so that they can continue with continue funding that infrastructure. So some of the components or elements that are in the report or are in the model. When we finish the evaluation, you'll see this impact. So that measures the total economic impact. We look at the fiscal and employment side, the net fiscal benefits. So after you do your cost benefit analysis, you're offering these incentives, and you want to know what is the benefit that the city is going to get, or the community is going to get from this infrastructure investment. It lists the project details, so that's an important component because obviously you want to know just exactly how much money is being spent on the project, and that helps us capture a lot of the other details and multipliers. We look at the public investments, so that's just an example. If you have to build extra roads or extra infrastructure that everyone benefits from, That's an additional investment that we incorporate into the model. And then finally, this is our final interface. So when you're reading this, it makes it digestible so that you can see exactly where your money is going. So some of the other, subcomponents that are included, we already talked about this, so I'll gloss over, but tax rates, mill levy rates, we look at, the average wage for all jobs for a specific sector. So, an example I'll use today is, if Wichita wants to, incorporate a new grocery store and they want to offer a tax abatement, I'll look at the average wages for all the jobs, in that grocery store sector, and that can be applied to the model. We look at the number of employees. We look at the residents, so how much people are spending on property or on purchasing houses, and then the subsequent property tax from that. So there are a lot of different interesting factors that go into this model, and they all, combine in order to get your final result. So another thing that we'll talk about that the model does capture is substitution, and these are kind of important concepts as we go through. So substitution is the thought that if you move this grocery store into Wichita, that a lot of the employees, it's not necessarily going to add a whole lot of new jobs, but a lot of those employees will come from other jobs, and so it'll just be, a substitution effect where it's not necessarily creating value. It's just substituting something that's already there. And then leakages are things that flow out of the economy, and so we want to make sure to try to capture those just so we can actually tell the true story of what money is flowing around the economy. So as we prepare the report, we go through the two different sides. So we look at the cost, and then we look at the benefit, and then we combine those two for our net analysis. So your costs are going to be the incentives that you offer. So the incentives can be sales tax exemption, property tax abatement, investments from the state, or infrastructure improvements that we talked about. For the benefit side, we look at the firm and how that's going to benefit the economy. So we look at where the site is located, if it's in a special taxing district. We look at the actual infrastructure that is going to be constructed with these new projects, and we look at how that's going to stimulate the economy with the employment and their wages and the amount of visitors that they're able to bring into the economy to come and spend new money. So after we go through this preparation, then the model performs an evaluation, and this gives us different measurements. So first is an economic impact, and then there's a fiscal impact. So the economic impact is more using these multipliers in this concept of direct, indirect, and induced. So direct is going to be the actual money that the firm is spending. The indirect is going to be all of the suppliers for the firm. So with this, grocery store example, direct is just the infrastructure of building the store. Indirect is all of the different suppliers for the grocery store. So, sugar, fruits, if they buy some of the handheld pies from JJ's Food, then, that goes into that indirect, and then induced. So all those employees are going to go home, they're going to spend money at barbershops, restaurants, etc. And so it's going to create, this induced effect. So the combination of all of those creates this economic impact. Another element of this economic impact is the construction. So we don't consider that as ongoing because, the construction is temporary as long as it lasts. But with that, we want to make sure that we capture the jobs of those construction employees. We want to ensure that we capture the materials investment of those construction employees. So we want to capture that. And then finally, with those numbers, we take it into, it's called a Lontief multiplier. So for each of these jobs and for all of this money, it can go and propagate and support even more jobs in the economy through those indirect and induced notions. The other side after we get through this economic impact is the fiscal impact, and that's where the money is. And so that's your net present value or present value of your net benefits. So that's your incentives minus your benefits or your costs. Or I should say your benefits minus your costs. So, and we look at that in net present value. So the value today is going to be different compared to with inflation. In 10 years, it's going to be a different value in the future. We give you a return on your investment. So we do that cost benefit analysis and finally come up with an ROI and a benefit cost ratio. So you can see over here, we do that for the fiscal side. And you can see this is the net public benefits and then the public costs. So it's pretty straightforward. We do it over a 10-year and a 20-year period, just so you can see most tax abatements, or property tax abatements are going to be 10-year that we've seen. So we want to make sure that we capture that 10-year period, but after that, there's another 10, 20, 30 years that this firm's going to exist and contribute to the economy. And when you're no longer abating taxes, you're going to get a lot more benefit. So that just helps us show the long-term results of that investment. And then finally, down here, you can see exactly where that infrastructure is going. So you can see this kind of share of incentives. That's who's contributing these incentives. So we look at that through the framework of the state, the county, the city, and any special taxing districts. When we talk about this benefit cost ratio, when we've gone through all of the effort of putting in all these different inputs, we finally get this ratio, and it's just the benefits divided by the costs. So yeah, as we said earlier, those benefits are going to be your sales tax, property tax, any money coming into the government. Costs are going to be anything that the government is offering as an incentive or as a cost. So the final interface for this evaluation, this kind of shows the long-term 20-year graphical interface. And so you want to have at least a 1.0 return for your investment. Anything over is a gain, anything under is a loss. And kind of you can see the concept that I was talking about here with this, like how we want to capture that 10-year investment, but also the 20-year investment, because we can see that it takes a while in order to get the benefit cost ratio above that one break-even point. So, in this example, it happens before year 10, but in plenty of examples, when you're offering this back tax, property tax abatement, it might not even out until year 15 or so. So we want to make sure that we capture that long-term picture, so that way, you know that you're actually getting a benefit, over the long run. So some of the things that aren't included in this model are intangible benefits, these non-market values, behavioral changes, some of the externalities. So like, if you have a chemical plant and the chemical plant has extra costs for asbestos abatement or something, to that effect. We can't we don't really have a good way of empirically capturing that. So we do know that we're just not able to. And then can't calculate uncertainty and risk, and just other considerations. However, I will note that as methodologies get refined, we do try to incorporate those into our model with those yearly updates. So we can go into the model here, and now would be a good time to pause and ask if anyone has any questions. Seeing none. So we'll just show you the interface of the model and walk through. Sure.
They might take a minute to mute.
Oh, yes. So I'll let you guys think of questions. Pull this up here just to show you our interface and what we'll be working with. And as we're going through this, if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to stop me, and I'll do my best to answer them. So we start with listing this company information. This is important because this tells us about those special taxing districts. It tells us the industry that the actual firm is going to be a part of, which helps inform the wage employment. It helps inform the purchases and the sales, and that's one of the more critical pieces of the fiscal model. And then you can see, as I mentioned earlier, we analyze this through the perspective of the state. We assume all of, for this model, everything's in Kansas. We'll look at the city, the county, the school, and the special districts. And for additional information, we look at the actual project. We look at the infrastructure investment that's going to happen. We look at the period of years where it's going to happen, so that way we can capture that net present value and make sure that we incorporate that thought process into our final numbers. We look at the land, the building and improvements. Something that we note for the building improvements, this includes all of the construction process. So all design plans, all architectural drawings, that's all included in this building and improvements. And then furniture, fixtures, and equipment, those are taxed differently than the actual property, and so we want to capture that separately. Then we look at the share of materials and salaries on that construction. So as you're building a new building, we talked about how this is kind of a temporary instance. So we take the construction project. We assume for every project that some of that is going to go to the actual materials of the building. Some of that is going to go to the salaries of the construction employees who are actually performing the labor to construct the new building. An important part of capturing, where this either abatement is going to come from, or where this exemption, sorry, that's the word I was looking for, is going to come from, is this amount of taxable construction materials and where they're purchased. So it's important to take that into consideration, and same thing for the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So when we go through this model and we look at sales and purchases, some firms have a good plan. They've been in existence for a long time. They know exactly, how much money they can expect to make over the next 20 years with their own infrastructure and investment. But other firms, they might not know. They might be a new firm, and so we have to use our best methodology in order to gauge that. So what we do is we take their employment, we take that NAICS sector, and our model is able to generate sales and purchases for those organizations. Same thing with employment. So one of the assumptions that our model makes is this: how many of these new employees are going to come from out of state? How many of them are going to come from out of county? How many of them are going to be working but not necessarily contributing to the state economy and this remote work? So this is important to capture, because that tells us when they go to buy a house or when they go to spend their money, are they a new entrant into the economy and going to add additional stimulation, or are they just a remote worker who's not necessarily going to actually contribute any fiscal value? Same thing for visitors. So say you build this grocery store in Wichita, and it's maybe something that other people. So if there were no other grocery stores in Wichita, then you would get visitors from outside of the economy coming in, just on a basis. Some of them might need to stay the night and purchase a hotel, so we want to factor that in. And then as they're here, we want to there is a metric that we use for how much they're spending on average every single day while they're in the economy. And with that comes tax benefits that go back to the city. So we want to make sure that we capture that. Finally, then we look at the payment by the company. So sometimes there are structured deals where the organization actually pays the community in lieu of taxes. So that's kind of the benefit side, or the firm data side. Does anyone have any questions about this firm data side? No? Okay, so we'll move on to incentives, and yeah, if anyone has any questions during this side, feel free to stop me. So we go into this incentive side. So this is what your community, what your city, county is offering to this organization as an incentive to induce them to build in your community. So one of the first ones is sales tax exemption on construction materials. So that's one of the first. Then there's sales tax exemptions for operations, property tax abatements for the property and the machinery, and then any loans, as we mentioned, infrastructure improvements, other incentives. I see a question in the chat. Yes. Is it possible to share out this format? Yes. So I'll take it to our website here. So let's see, did we put this in the chat?
Yeah, that's the link.
Yeah, so the link in the chat, this is where that link will take you. And then if you go to this firm data sheet here, that'll pop up this format. So you're able to access it there. Hopefully, let me know if you have any problems accessing that, because we really want to make sure that our website is working and that everyone is able to access it. But perfect. Thank you, Colleen. So with this, we have this firm data sheet, and that's what we're going through here. But we also have this set of instructions. So I'll take you through our instructions, and it's just a long form PDF, but it goes through all of these elements. And so if you have any kind of questions on the nuances of what exactly goes into these data elements, this offers a very detailed explanation of what goes into it. However, in general, our process of going through this is, we try to set up at least a 30-minute meeting where we walk through this firm data sheet and talk about it more conversationally, so that way we ensure all the inputs are going in correctly. But sometimes you might not have time for that. You might want to just do it yourself, and so this is a good guide to help make sure that all of those inputs are going correctly. They're all reasonable, and they all kind of meet the nuances of the requirement of the actual data input. So, does anyone have any questions over this website, any of the firm data sheet?
Can I share something? What were they thinking?
Yeah. I'll invite Jeremy back for a thought.
So we've updated in this fiscal model, that actually this new version, which really wasn't stated, and we've completely updated the whole tourism part of the model.
Correct. Yep.
Made a big adjustment to that. We had a tourism model, and then we had this impact model. We just combined them, so now we have a lot more complexity to add tourism to the impacts. So that was a big improvement, and we have a few more improvements that we'd like to add to it over this next year. So right now we have this fiscal side, but sometimes there's a cost structure for governments of providing services and additional revenues that they might receive in some cases. So we're considering building that out as another component of this model. So not only that, but there's also a few more reports we thought would be beneficial to understand a little bit more of where that revenue is coming from. I know a few times recently people wanted to know not just what happened to the overall revenue for the city or county, but how did it come from property tax, from retail sales, or in this case, if we add a new feature, if there's other enterprise funds being generating some value back to the city or county or local government. Anyway, that was just share, kind of what our thoughts are on how we might improve and add more value.
Yeah. I guess I'll open up this question just to see if anyone has any thoughts of other things that they would like to see maybe incorporated into the model. We listed all the things that we can't capture, but like this tourism, that was one of the suggestions from a previous client. So yeah, if anyone has any thoughts on things that they would like to see, we are getting ready to update this again in June. So I think that's when our next update is scheduled. So yeah, we're more than happy to take a look at what we can include potentially. So if anyone has any thoughts, we'd welcome them.
We have the model open, so we can run numbers in there if you wanted to see kind of how it looks like. Maybe the sudden warm weather has gotten everyone dreamy-eyed about being outside. All right. I don't think we necessarily need to keep going if there's not questions.
Yeah. I think that kind of wraps up our model and everything it entails. I know
We
we've
might
got
have one question coming in over the chat.
Sure.
Just
Sure.
So why don't we pause as we get questions? If anyone wants to stick around and ask a question, we're good with that. So this would be a good, since there's not an overall question for the group, we can go ahead and kind of consider it the end of this presentation, but stick around for any other discussions that someone might want more individually.
Yeah. And yeah, we appreciate you all for joining today. Yeah, it was great to make your acquaintance, and yeah, I'll be the person who's helping you run through this model. So I'll be your point of contact as you're going through. And yeah, we can definitely do a one-on-one tutorial. So yeah, we can do it on site. Generally, it's more. Well, it is helpful to have a kind of a Teams meeting, so that way I can share my screen. But yeah, Colleen, I'll talk with you offline, and yeah, we can see what we can do. To get you deeper into this model. But yeah, I would love to chat with you about it.
I think everyone's getting ready for spring break vacation plans. You're welcome to unmute. We only have a few people in the room. If you just wanted to chat, it really won't be a problem.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, so this is Jeff Methy. Just wanted to say I appreciate this. So I work for a private company, and we sometimes look at possibilities of expanding or adding additional factories or facilities, and I really kind of want to get some insight into how municipalities look at how they evaluate such opportunities, and this kind of gave me a kind of a bit of a first insight in kind of how it works. And so
there's a way. So sometimes some communities want us to work directly with, or the company directly comes to us. So this is the process of engaging is to maximize the value to the firm and the value to the city or communities that we're working with. So we've had times where the company just wanted this information, and there are times the city wanted this or state wanted this information. And then sometimes they wanted it separately, and they wanted to work through what is most beneficial to them. But usually, getting the information out and then finding out how you can get the biggest value for the company and the community is usually what works best when we're doing these projects. Now, this is the fiscal side, but on the firm side, we also have just the economic impact, which we can do even in more detail than what we're showing here. So sometimes firms need to know, hey, what value are they contributing? And we can show all the different industries you're impacting in much greater detail and how it's impacting it and the total value contributed to the community.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, one of the questions I got recently was, can you show my firm the exact value that we're going to get from pursuing this tax abatement? How much value, how much are we going to save by pursuing this? And yeah, so our model is able to capture that, and we're able to show that to you, through those incentive cost calculations.
So Jeff, to build on this, we do, and I don't know if you're, I had to step out a little bit during this. We do iterations. So usually when we do a project, it could be one iteration or it could be, 20 iterations. And the idea is every time we do it, either the firm's getting better information or is negotiating through what is beneficial to the community and to the company. So that's part of the process of seeing how their company or that this event that was going to happen is going to impact the community.
It's
Jeremy,
quite detailed. I think the only other question I would have, and you indicated it wasn't included on the model. How do government agents or government, local, city, county, state governments look at uncertainty in projects? Maybe potential for cost overruns and that kind of thing, or.
Yeah. So each community has their own policies, and sometimes and it has nothing to do with this, sometimes they have their own clawbacks on projects and then they have their own policies, the informal policy, they don't have practices on how they work with companies. So you might have a proposal and then say, okay, hey, we want a benefit cost ratio of 1.3, which inherently says you're going to get a 3% return annually for a 10-year period, right? As a 1.3. So they may want that as their starting condition of saying, hey, we've got risk, but we're also expecting to have a return, and we want this minimum return on there. Or they might say, hey, we'll go and have these other policies formally of what we want and the risk that we want to take associated with it. And sometimes that's a conversation that we have that is a harder conversation with some of these local communities where they say, hey, and I'll give you a good example. There was a point in time where we had a large company in Kansas that was really struggling, but it had been here for a long time, and they were about to leave because they were really struggling with some other issues. There wasn't fundamental to their company being profitable, but they're just struggling with some other environmental issues, and they needed some new infrastructure, and other states were going after them. And the way the model shows is saying you're keeping this existing company, you're not going to add a whole lot of value. But then they had another company coming from another country. We didn't know anything about them. They had no presence in the United States, and it looked like they had a higher benefit and value to the state. And so we had to sit there and say, we had to come back and say, okay, what is the value of an existing company who has a long legacy and all this infrastructure and supply chain built, even though the model doesn't capture this, for this other company that's high risk we don't know anything about. They're just promising a whole lot. And so sometimes the numbers will look very promising and they don't know how to assess the risk, but we walk through that level of risk for them and saying, hey, let's evaluate this a little bit more than just this black and white numbers, because there's some more risk and more value to be gained in any project.
Jeremy,
Yes.
this is Colleen Mendoza from Osage County. I have a quick question for you. So, would you folks be able to help me to ascertain like a projected economic impact to the region or to our county based on maybe some of the regional things or proximity to other markets? And the reason I'm asking the question is we want to make sure that just on simple things like even water, there's a certain water demand that's going to we're going to need to supply for economic growth.
So yes, there's a couple ways. I think you broke up. Go ahead, finish.
Oh, I was just going to say, is that something that would be within the scope of what you guys do, and how quickly could we work on that together?
So this is definitely a question that we need to understand a little bit more of the parameters. But so the answer is yes, but we need to understand more of the parameters before we say how long it would take. Some of them could be easy, and some of them might take all this additional information that's not readily available. So for example, I mean, we've done analysis on wind, and I know since we're talking about your community, we had to do an econometric model to build that, but now we have data so we can come back and look at that impact on wind, for example. But since you're talking about water, you can look at the engineering costs versus what kind of companies might be hurt, or households that might be hurt if you don't get that water. So there's kind of this alternative forecast that we would do, and then show that as an impact either in this fiscal model. So what is it back fiscally to the city, county, and state? Or we could do just economic impact, which is a different model that gets in detail of wages and employment and output that's going to be lost if you don't do it. Lost to firms. So there's ways to talk about that, and it just depends on the level of data and in the direction we want to go in to explain this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in these cases, we usually think of what's the opportunity costs, particularly for water. If you're at capacity, what is the opportunity cost of not going to the next level, right? That's really the crust of this question right here. If we don't go to the next level, we can't get another housing unit. Well, what would that housing unit be? What would be, and what's that value? What is that industry that would have came if you did add more capacity? Or if your water is alternatively still an opportunity cost, your water system's not keeping up, and if you don't keep up, what will you lose? We can see what that cost would be to society.
Yeah, those are exactly the things that we'd like to evaluate.
Sure. And we can make a simple approach, or we can make a more complex approach to say, how comfortable and how confident are we in whatever numbers we're talking about. But we'll show you the strengths and weaknesses of whatever we do and talk through it.
Thank you.
Of course. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Hey, let's go enjoy get some sun. Well, it's foggy. Hopefully the sun comes out and we can enjoy some warmer weather.
I say at least it's not below freezing, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and let's see, I'll drop my email here. So if you guys have any follow-up questions, or just want to get in touch and approach one of these fiscal models, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, feel free to call the center, and either Andrea and I will pick up the phone, and we can get you scheduled for a walkthrough. So yeah, but we appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you for joining us, and we're happy to contribute and answer questions as they come up. So yeah, we appreciate it.
All right, have a good day.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Wait a second. All right, I think someone's out here wanting to chat, so
okay,
you go ahead and close announcements.
All right,
Jessica's not.
I'm gonna close it out, guys.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.